Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. I'm your Congressman, Mark Alford. And each week we come to you telling you what's going on in Washington, D.C., the swamp. Today, we've got a very special guest, going to change things up just a bit. We'll get to him in just a bit. His name is Colonel Keith Butler, the former commanding officer of the 509th Bomb Wing out of Whiteman Air Force Base, U.S. Air Force retired. And you're going to hear about the B-2 program, the B-21 program, and other things going on in our great nation. But first, let's get to a recap of the Schumer shutdown, America held hostage.
It's now been over 2 weeks since the Schumer shutdown began, and the pain is really starting to hit home. Federal workers right here in Missouri are starting to miss their paychecks. Families are feeling that strain, and thankfully President Trump and Speaker Johnson stepped in to make sure that our troops still get their pay, at least for this pay cycle, and that critical programs like women, infants, and children that help mothers and children are protected to get the food they need. That is true leadership. I also talked with a local mortgage broker who told me that this shutdown is slowing home sales, and it's really freezing USDA rural development loans. That's vital for a lot of families who wanted to close on their homes and move in. They can't do it thanks to Chuck Schumer. Listen.
Well, you've got families all over the United States who are doing USDA loans, which is a big part of it. No money down in the rural areas, and it doesn't matter when they took their application, if their appraisal's done. If their closing date was from 2 weeks ago till now, there is no closing. So you got people who are selling their houses, just waiting. You got people trying to buy houses, but then all the collateral damage that goes with that is moving trucks, families, schools, all that stuff. Because if the government's going to issue the USDA commitment letter, the lenders can't fund the loan. So you got people just waiting, and they have no idea how long they're going to wait, and they're freaking out.
What message do you have for Chuck Schumer?
Well, come on, get your act together, man. I mean, let's vote for the American people. That's what they voted on, and let's open it back up so that we can serve the common American public, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. It's hurting everybody.
Well, that's it from the news in Washington. Of course, this is going to drag on as long as Chuck Schumer decides that his pride, his arrogance, his ego comes before you, the American people. Let's talk about what's going on with the peace deal, the historic peace deal President Trump was so instrumental in this week and in really ending the war in Gaza. It is tragic that it began 2 years ago. Hamas terrorists kidnapped, killed, slaughtered Israelis and took many of them hostage, and now they're home. The remaining ones who are alive are back home with their loved ones. But you may have noticed President Trump's speech from Egypt at this peace summit talked about how this would not have been possible without the strike on Iran, Midnight Hammer, that happened earlier this year involving the B-2 stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base. We're honored to have with us on Mark Alford's Capital Recap Colonel Keith Butler, U.S. Air Force retired, former commanding officer of the 509th Bomb Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base. Colonel, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Congressman, very much. It is an honor to be here on your show.
When you hear that this entire peace deal would not have been possible without the strike on Iran, really decapitating their nuclear capabilities, that's got to make you feel some sort of pride in what you guys have accomplished.
It does. It's a testament to the investment our country put into the B-2 stealth bomber over 30 years ago to develop a technology that never existed before, with its intended mission to bring peace to the world. And we absolutely did that, not just at the end of the Cold War, but several times throughout. And the mission of Midnight Hammer is now changing the course of history in the Middle East.
And it's going to change the course of history, I think, in the future. We'll get into that, talking about the Indo-Pacific, China, Ukraine. That'll be in our next segment. But I want to stick with this first. So you retired just a couple of days before Midnight Hammer. I was at your ceremony at Whiteman Air Force Base, and then 2 or 3 days later, the call came for the President of the United States to make the strike on Iran. That had to be a little disheartening that you weren't actually there to call the shots from Whiteman Air Force Base.
Yes, it was not how we initially planned this. So when you do a change of command in the Air Force, and we combined that with our retirement from the Air Force,
right.
At the wing commander level, those events are set months in advance to make sure that my commanding officer, Two-Star General Jason Armagast in Louisiana, could make it up, and his schedule, the logistics, all the things it takes to put that together, right? And then as we got into the spring, we were tasked to deploy to Diego Garcia for our second round of striking the Houthis.
Right.
And that was the largest deployment of the B-2 in the course of its history. And as we were finishing that up is when we started to hear that the Iranian strike was starting to come back onto the front burner again. And so managing all of those things and looking at dates and potential execution, as I'm looking at that on the calendar going, that's right around the time we're doing change of command and the retirement. Well, we'll see how this goes. And that's pretty much how it worked out. So I gave up command of the 509th Bomb Wing on Wednesday morning, June 18th, 19th.
Yeah.
On a Wednesday morning. And thank you for attending. It was fantastic to see you there. And then 2 days later, knowing that while I'm giving my final comments, that in the background, there's B-2s, some with the hangar doors open, some with the hangar doors shut. And I'm looking out, seeing that aircraft has weapons on it. You can't see it because they're inside. That aircraft's getting engine runs done right now. That aircraft has maintainers putting the finishing touches on it. To be up there in front of everybody, knowing that that was happening, and I couldn't say a word. I literally had to keep everything on the inside, knowing that in 2 days we were going to launch for that. That was a moment I will never forget.
Just to clarify for folks, this isn't something that just happens overnight, a strike on Iran to decapitate its nuclear capabilities. This is something that took decades of planning using the B-2, and you were a part of this planning for many years.
I was, and this was a mission like many war plans that our country trains and develops and maintains on the shelf, if you will, so that when necessary and called upon about your combatant command leadership or by the nation's leaders, in this case, President Trump, to go execute Operation Midnight Hammer. It is our responsibility as a professional military organization to be ready when that call comes in. And so we are always training. We are always developing. We are always refining our tactics, our techniques, our procedures, our war plans, so that when the call comes in, it's never a question, are you ready? It's a statement, go. And our job as leaders in the military is to make sure that we never have to ask the question. It's just assumed that Superman's going to show up and get the job done. And we were able to do that. And that took years of training, years of multiple trips around the world and coordinating with different agencies and ensuring that when and if that call came in, we could respond with, yes, sir.
I was recently at the base in Greece, Sudo Bay, where the refueling jets took off from and refueled in air our B-2 stealth bombers as they went over to Iran and back. This was not just the pilots in the B-2, although I think there were 7 bombers that went over there. But this was a well-coordinated from support team on the ground to refueling in the air. How do you coordinate something like that's that complex?
That's a great question. And the reality is it takes a team. It takes a team of dedicated professionals, many of whom have spent their entire adult lives training for these types of situations. The investment that our military and our Congress, our U.S. government puts into its military is not cheap. You know that. The American public knows that. This was a prime example of the return on that investment. And so with that comes everything from people in the Pentagon, from the Secretary of Defense's office all the way down. Combatant commands that are in Germany, in the Middle East, services like the Navy, for example, who helped ensure that the sea lanes were clear as we were working our way through into Iran. The U.S. Space Force, which is their newest military branch, they had a very big role in ensuring that from a space and overhead perspective, we had the information, we had the intelligence, we had updated targets, we had threat analysis, and we got active support from them during the execution to make sure that those B-2s stayed safe. There were things from the State Department's perspective to make sure that other countries were aware at the appropriate time of what we were going to be doing, not in the granularity, but in the more strategic aspects of it, so that other people weren't caught by surprise. Making sure that, as you pointed out, tankers were able to land in Suda Bay and in other places to make sure that the B-2 got the gas that it needed at the time that it needed it, whether you had to say a word about it or not. And that's part of that professionalism. There was so much that took place. And to your exact point, yes, the pilots are the ones that primarily get the credit, but the pilots cannot do what they do without an entire army, if you will, of people behind them who are making sure that the aircraft are ready to go. The weapons are built. They're loaded on the aircraft correctly. The forms are correct. The parts are in the right place. People who are part of the industrial complex to make sure the supply chains and parts, when you start to break it down and look all the way to the corners, it truly is a massive organization that takes to pull this off.
And now we're looking forward to getting the B-21 Raider, the newest version of the stealth bomber. And President Trump actually talked about that a little bit in Egypt, telling them that something even greater is coming in the B-2. I've been out there. I know you have been to Palmdale, California. I've been out there to see it firsthand. It is still a classified setting out there. What can you tell us, though? We're going to be the second to get the B-21 Stealth Raider in its rotation as they're being built. What can you tell us in this setting about the greatness of the B-21?
Oh, my goodness. Well, of all the things that I can tell you, it's not nearly what I would like to tell you.
I tell people it's a lot stealthier than what we have now.
Yeah, very fair. I was very fortunate, very lucky in my Air Force career to have started working on the B-21, excuse me. At the time, it wasn't even the B-21. It was called the Long Range Strike Bomber. And this was in 2012 or 13. And we were developing the requirements at the time of what does this new bomber need to be able to go out and do for the next 40 to 50 years, trying to look in a crystal ball and determine what does it need to do. We hadn't even, as a country, decided what company was going to build it yet. And so we were working with two primary contractors on the offering, and they were giving us information, very iterative back and forth. And so from even back then, as a B-2 pilot to go, okay, if I could do it over again, what would I want to have in this new airplane? Boy, what a neat opportunity. Fast forward 10, 12 years and have been fortunate to have been involved with that as its development, to see it being built, to be in the same Palmdale location that you were multiple times. What I can tell you about the aircraft is when they say, and I mean they, Northrop Grumman, the Air Force, that this is the world's first sixth generation aircraft, they mean it. This is truly a game-changing technology, series of technologies that are coming to bear in the B-21. The F-35 and the F-22 are known as fifth-generation technologies. Right. Sorry, F-15s, F-16s, fourth-generation technology. B-1s and fourth generation. B-52 is probably third generation technology, right? This is a game changer. And there is no other country in the world, truly in the world, that even comes close to what the B-2 has, much less what the B-21 is going to provide for our country, its allies, and our nation's defense.
Originally, back in the 80s, we were to have built more than 100 B-2s. We ended up building a fifth of those because the Berlin Wall fell. Everyone thought, hey, we don't have a threat now from the USSR, so why spend the money? Had we had those on the ground now, just think where we would have been. And that's the direction we're having now with the B-21. We have authorized and appropriated, I think, for 140, something in that range, or
where it needs to be.
Yeah. Hey, but we're going to talk more about the B-21 program, what it means to communist China, and this madman named Vladimir Putin, who is continuing his illicit war in Ukraine. You're listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. We're talking with Colonel Keith Butler, retired from the U.S. Air Force Base, used to be over the 509th Bomb Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base, the B-2 stealth bomber, soon to be home of the B-21. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Mark Alford's Capital Recap, where each week we give you a behind-the-scenes look at Washington and in the district. We continue the Schumer shutdown, though America held hostage, so we're back working in the district this week. But we're joined today by Colonel Keith Butler, retired from the U.S. Air Force, former commander of the 509th Bomb Wing out of Whiteman Air Force Base. We're talking about the new bomber that's coming to Whiteman Air Force Base, the B-21 Raider. This is a huge deal that Whiteman is getting this.
It absolutely is.
It's going to mean a lot for the families out there, for the economy in the 4th Congressional District, perhaps the new 5th Congressional District.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Not just, and it's not a one-for-one trade-off when we take a B-2 out and put a B-21. That's not how it works in the Air Force. There is construction that needs to be done. There are manpower changes that need to take place. How the B-21 is flown and operated and maintained is going to be different than the B-21. And so we're going to see changes there starting this year. And some of the construction and the preparation for what's called MILCON, or military construction, is underway on Whiteman as we speak. And we'll see that through most of the rest of this decade and potentially into the early part of the next decade as well, depending on cost, schedule, performance, and all the things that go with that. But it's not just a one-for-one swap. And then you have to take a look at how does the aircraft come off of the assembly line. Ellsworth Air Force Base in Rapid City, South Dakota will be the first, Whiteman will be the second, and Dyess Air Force Base in Abilene, Texas will be the third. And the success of Midnight Hammer really highlighted the value of long-range global strike stealth technology. And so it wouldn't surprise me in the least if we find ourselves in a situation where we're managing both simultaneously a B-2 fleet in operation and a B-21 fleet in operation. And the manpower that takes, the office space that it takes, the vaults, the places for maintenance to do their work, air traffic control, local airspace systems, bombing ranges, everything that it takes to operate and manage an Air Force fleet coming together either toward the end of this decade or again into the first part of the next decade. It's going to be an exciting time for Whiteman and for West Central Missouri.
And the good news is I happen to know a guy who's on the Appropriations Committee for Military Construction VA Subcommittee. And I firmly believe in the mission out there. And so I'm going to be pushing for all the projects that we can bring back to Missouri to turn it from the show me state into the grow me state, as I tell Governor Kehoe. So the B-21 is going to be a great deterrent against, well, the B-2 was against the Iranian mullahs and those wanting to eradicate and annihilate Israel. And I think most of the Western world, the ballistics that they were developing over there. What does the B-21 program mean in particular? We're going to keep the B-2 lethal and ready until the B-21 comes on board. But what does the B-21 mean to folks like Xi Jinping, who I think is determined, possibly by 2027, that's what some of the generals are telling me, to invade Taiwan? And we have an agreement, the Taiwan Relations Act of 1972, to aid in their self-defense. What does that mean to Xi Jinping, the B-21?
The B-21 is a technological leap in modern air power at scale. To your comments from earlier about the acquisition, the number of B-2s that our country ended up purchasing versus the number of B-21s that we're going to purchase. We only purchased 21 B-21s. I'm sorry, it's too many numbers. 21 B-2s, right? We lost the one in Guam in 2008, and we lost another one in December of 22 on a terrible mishap accident. Thankfully, the crew is fine. But for every one of those aircraft that are lost, that's 5% of your fleet. Those aren't good numbers to be working through. Now, it's an incredibly safe airplane for the course of over 30 years to have that kind of a track record. But to be able to provide this exquisite payload, stealth, range, and precision attributes that our country demands to go do global strike, long-range strike, from the middle of Missouri, anywhere in the world, and fly back home without landing. We're going to scale that to 3 different states now, and potentially even forward deploy, depending on how we choose to utilize that aircraft, in ways that you could never dream about in the B-2. What that does, it brings a calculation problem for our nation's adversaries that is an order of magnitude, if not more, than what they have to deal with now. And that's exactly what we want as a country. We want our military to be so strong that it frustrates their decision calculus whether they decide deterrence has worked or if they're going to go make a run for it, whatever that is. Doesn't matter what part of the world it's in. It doesn't matter what type of country they live in. Our job is to make sure that they look at that decision calculus and go, not today. Because when they do that, and they do that every day right now, we in America and our nation's deterrence forces win. Every day that we're not at war, we're winning. And we're doing that through continual upgrade of across the services, across the military branches. And the B-21 is a huge part of that because we can get places that nobody else can get to, and we can carry things that nobody else can carry, and we can get there faster than anybody else can. And that's a decision that we want to keep on our side of the equation.
And the same holds true when it comes to being a deterrent to Vladimir Putin.
Same thing. And this is very true, whether that's in the conventional realm with normal weapons or in the nuclear realm for nuclear weapons as well.
I want to use our final couple of minutes to talk about the future of our nation. I truly believe, and I know that when you were in the military, you couldn't really come out in public and say this, but I think we have a same respect for the current commander-in-chief and this almost a Reagan-esque when it comes to peace through strength.
Wholeheartedly, yes, I agree with that. His ability to broker peace, to settle conflicts, to not have a misunderstanding about where America's priorities lie is really nice. And I'll put that succinctly. It's really nice to be able to understand that President Trump is a huge advocate of our nation's military. And I'm going to say this is going to come across prideful, and that's okay. When you see pictures of the president in the Oval Office at his desk, and in the corner, there's a model of the B-2, it makes you feel pretty good.
I bet. Colonel, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your service, and not just you, but your wife and your kids, a great American family. I just can't get over what an asset you have been, and I think will continue to be for our great nation. I hope you stay involved and continue to be a voice for peace through strength.
Congressman, thank you for the time and the opportunity to share the story of Whiteman and the B-2 with your listeners.
That's it for Mark Alford's Capitol Recap. Thank you for being with us today. Hey, we're going to get through this shutdown. It's Schumer's shutdown, and he's got to end it. He has dug a hole for himself, and I'm telling you right now, Chuck, you broke it, you buy it. You are damaging our country each and every day. Until next week, this is Mark Alford. Remember, folks, I believe in you. I believe that our best days are still ahead of us. I believe in America, and I can't wait to be with you again next week. Good day, and God bless.